We're going to start this one off with just a brief story, so bear with me. A couple of days ago, my nibblings saw Sonic 3 and they could not wait to get back and tell me about something specific they saw in that movie. It was this. I understand their excitement. That's pretty awesome. And obviously my first impulse was to attempt to make it for myself. However, being someone who doesn't have much of a sweet tooth, I don't think making a Donut Lord sweater is really the best choice for me. But I am someone who, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, does enjoy yarn on occasion. So I'm thinking we put a bit of a crochet twist on this Donut Lord sweater. In order to facilitate that, I have grabbed myself out some of the blue yarn I had in my stash. This sweater looks pretty basic. It seems to be just constructed out of granny squares. So the first thing I'm going to do is crochet myself one. I'm going to measure that and then use those measurements to determine how many I'm going to need to make an entire sweater. So one square of 4 rounds is 11 centimeters wide. So if I measure from shoulder to shoulder, I've done this so many times now. Well, I've done this a few times now. You'd think I'd remember how wide my shoulders are, but nope. About that. What do we got? So we've got about 35. So that's not quite 4 squares wide. I mean, that still works. That's how wide it is. It might be a little bit big, but I mean, it's a jumper. Like, I don't care if it's a little bit big and baggy. Sometimes they're more comfortable. So I'm thinking I'll leave the square at 4 rounds, and then I will do the sweater panels, the front and back, 4 squares wide. Length doesn't matter so much, but I will have it stop at probably about my waist. So that's going to be roughly, let's stand up straight. What do you got there? So that could be, I just got about 63 from that measurement. So I'd say maybe roughly 5 or 6 squares long. So I'm just going to work out how many granny squares I need. I'm going to crochet them and then I'll bring you guys back when it's done. Unfortunately, it's looking like I'm gonna have to revise my jumper plans a little bit. I have crocheted with the entire first skein of this blue, and that gave me a total of 11 squares. Now let's say I get the same amount from my second skein. That's going to give me 22, which is 5 short of the 27 that I need for the pattern that I designed. And also I'm going to miss out on my 2 triangles that I want as well. That is not a big deal for this yarn. There goes the hook. That is not a big deal for this yarn because I have a couple of additional skeins of that. In fact, that's what I was planning to use for the sleeves. But this one, I only had the 2 skeins, and because the point of this exercise was to use up yarn in my stash and not buy any more, I don't want to have to turn around and go and do that. So my solution to this is to change up my original design a little bit, slot in some alternate color squares. It won't be the nice, neat checkerboard look that I was initially going for, but it will allow me to use up some of the yarn in my stash. Now, because I need a specific weight yarn for this, I don't know if any of the blue I have lying around is going to work. I'll have a dig through the yarn that I've got. Hopefully I can find a blue that works, but if not, I might end up going with either a black or a grey maybe. I do believe I have the correct weight yarn in both of those colours, but hopefully if I'm lucky I'll be able to find some blue. Haha! I was talking to my mum over the weekend and I happened to, you know, mention this crochet project, and she told me that she had some blue yarn that I could take. She was going to make a footy scarf from this for one of my nephews, but it turns out it was sort of the wrong shade of blue. So yeah, now I get to use it up as a jumper. So I need to crochet myself some squares with that. And because I think I've got 3 or 4 skeins of this, I'm probably going to use this for the sleeves and joining the squares as well. Well, as of yesterday, I officially have all the squares that I will need, if I've maths correctly, that is. Here they are. Oh, I just hit my teacup then. That was not a good move. But here they all are. And now I just need to piece them together. If I have a look at the Yarn Lord sweater, let me grab that picture up. It seems like the seams are visible. So I'm just going to be joining all of these squares with a slip stitch. Don't have to worry about invisible joins or anything like that. I was going to block these individually, but honestly, I think it'll be easier just to put them into the panels that I want and then block them then. But the step before that is to actually lay them out in the configuration that I want. And I'm hoping my bench here will be large enough to do that, but I'm not too confident about that. As I get ready to do this, I've got to admit, there's another thing that gives me a bit of hesitation. I've created this layout using triangles that will go like up the top here. And I've done that so I can try and get a bit of like a raglan sleeve going on. But I'm worried I'm not going to have enough room for my neck. Like, I've measured it, and taking into account the stretch of the yarn, I think it'll work, but I also reckon it's going to be a tight fit. So I'm sitting here now wondering if I should omit the triangles and just use squares. I mean, I have made the triangles, but I honestly think it might be for the best if I use squares. The only issue I could potentially run into there is I'm not going to have enough of this blue. We can do a trial run. I'll put the triangles in first, and I can just pin that together with stitch markers, and I'll see how it goes. I think it's just going to fit on my table. Whew. And we need one of you there. Okay, that is the layout of the top piece. Let me show you. And this is what it's supposed to look like. And so this is the layout that I had. And that's what I've got. I am just pretty concerned that this ain't gonna work. But like I said, I'm gonna pin just this top section together, and I'll see what I'm working with. Even if it does fit, which, as I said, I measured it, and I think it will technically fit, I just think it's going to be really tight against my neck. And if that's the case, it's going to make me not want to wear this thing. I hate having clothes that, like turtlenecks, oh, they give me the shudders. I don't like anything like around my neck. So to counteract that, I think I'm going to have to substitute in squares for these triangles. That might just give me a bit more room to work with, even if I'm not going to end up having that raglan sleeve look like I originally wanted. If I am going to make a substitution, I will need to crochet myself a few more squares, which is concerning because I don't think I'm going to have enough of this yarn. So worst comes to worst, I'll have to substitute and add in just one of the other blues. I'm kind of disappointed about that. I was really interested to see how the raglan sleeve would turn out. But you know what, we can save that for another project. As I said, it's no good doing it if it's not going to fit me, or if it just barely fits me and it irritates me to the point where I don't want to wear it. I am going to start putting these squares together. Once again, I've put off weaving in my ends. I should know better. I should weave them in as I go, but I usually can't be bothered. And then it comes back to bite me in the ass later on. But I will weave in all of these at the end, after or before I block it, I should say. And because my mum gave me this yarn, that is what I will be using to join all these squares, because I have the most of that. And I'm hoping that I'll have enough for the sleeves as well. My squares are nice and dry, so I have the 2 panels that I need. You know, originally I was going to have the jumper this way, so 6 by 5 squares, but I'm actually wondering now if I should do it the opposite way, so have 5 by 6, because it'll make it a little bit longer, and I do believe if I've measured correctly, it should still fit me anyway. It might be a little bit snug, but that doesn't matter right now, because while normally at this stage where I have the panels that I need, I would begin sewing the seams together, or crocheting the seams together in this case. Today I'm going to do something a little bit differently. Because this jumper is going to have some details on it, I do need to convert myself into the yarn lord. I'm going to attach those first and then stitch this piece together. So the details that I'm going to need include letters, as well as little skeins, cakes of yarn. The issue I'm facing is I don't really know the best way to achieve that look. The letters is one thing. I can whip up a pattern myself, or I can just look up like lettering tutorials, that's fine. But it's the yarn skeins that are holding me up, because there's probably a few ways I can do this. But perhaps the best approach is going to be to try out a couple of different variations and just see which one comes out on top. I'm fessing up. This is a re-record. The last several weeks have been such a whirlwind that I don't know if I recorded this and I accidentally deleted it, or if I forgot to record it entirely. I cannot remember for the life of me. But because this portion is a bridge between the previous section and what is coming up, I need to have something in here, so re-recording it is. All I wanted to do here was come up with a design that I'm going to have on the front of my shirt. I am going to replace the word Donut Lord with Yarn Lord. The design that I came up with will be playing on the screen now. Enjoy. That is all I need to do for this re-recording, I think. I will see you in the next segment. Well, we've sort of reached the confession portion of this video, this project. I have not touched this jumper in, it's got to be close to 2 months now. I've just had a lot of stuff to deal with in like my personal life, and it's been a rough few weeks, and I've barely had time to crochet at all. And now that I return to this project, I find myself just completely unmotivated. Unfortunately, that's sort of been the case across the board with my crochet recently. I'm just finding it hard to like pick myself up and get myself back into crocheting. I still don't have that much time to to allocate to it, unfortunately, but even in the, you know, the little fragments of time I do have for it, I don't know, I'm struggling to pick up my hook. And I hate that feeling, and I hate it. I gotta try and push through it. And to do that, I'm kind of thinking of changing my plans, my original design for this jumper a little bit, in part because I've blocked my letters that I made, and I made them too big. I think I made them too big, and if I'm going to be completely honest, I think I knew they were too big, or they were going to be a little bit big as I was crocheting them. But at that point, I was in the mind frame of, I don't care, I just got to get this done. Not the right frame of mind to be like crocheting something like this or working on a project, but it is what it is, and this is what I've got now, and I cannot dredge up the enthusiasm to recrochet this, so I'm tweaking things a little bit. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Sorry to be a bit of a downer, put a damper on the video, but I'd rather just be upfront and say, hey, this is what's going on. So in light of all that, I am changing up my design a little bit, and you know what? Silver linings, trying to stay at least a little bit positive about this. I don't think it's going to work out all that badly. Now, if you remember from the original, the Donut Lord design, that did have like little donuts all over it, and I was planning to replicate that to a certain degree and just have like skeins or cakes of yarn. But the thing is, even as I was coming up with design, I was kind of on the fence about it, because that sort of look didn't really appeal to me, but I wanted to sort of honor the original, the template, the design of the Donut Lord sweater. So I think because I've made, you know, the letters giant, I'm going to leave off those yarn patches, skeins, whatever they were going to be. I'm going to leave those off for now. I'll sew on the letters to the front of my jumper, and depending on how large they end up looking on the piece, I may add a few decorative skeins, or another idea I had was instead to crochet myself a big pocket down the bottom. Hang on, like this. I have one I can show you as an example. So a big pocket like that, and have a couple sort of like spilling out of the side. I thought that could be a good compromise. It's going to pay homage to the, I didn't mean to do that. It's going to pay homage to the original design, but also it's going to rein that design in a little bit to where I would probably wear this thing. You know, as much as I like the original in concept, it's not really something that I would wear outside of, you know, a few rare special occasions. But at least if I did it this way and toned it down slightly, I would. And that's good, because one of my goals, you know, this year going forward is that the clothing I make, I want to actually wear it. I don't want to have it sit in my wardrobe or on the clothes rack and just collect dust. I want to get some use out of it. So in changing my plans a little bit, I think I can achieve that. The one thing I will need to add is this section here. Obviously that's supposed to be an A, but I am going to replace that with a skein of yarn. I don't know how I'm going to construct this piece yet. I will sew down Lord first, I think, then I will sew yarn, or the letters that I have of yarn, on top of that, so I can size these to that, and then whatever gap is left in the middle, that's what I'll fill with a skein. However I do that, I don't know. Yeah, brain's a bit fried at the moment, so I don't know. We're just sort of ambling along, and whatever happens. I need something to keep my pins in. For those of you keeping track, I still have not found my pin spider. I am completely befuddled about that. I have no idea where it is. That's what we're working with at the moment. Not the original vision, but I don't think it looks too bad. So I'm just going to get those sewn on. If I can lay this out without all my pins coming undone. I mean, it looks a bit like a bib at the moment, but if you can imagine that seamed at the sides, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it might be. And then with the addition of a pocket and the yarn ball here, I mean, that could turn out all right, I suppose. My letters, some of my letters are a bit wonky, aren't they? But it is difficult to sew straight lines on these granny squares. Now that I have those attached, I'm going to make a skein of yarn that's also going to double as an A. Well, that's the pocket sorted. It's a little bit small, still functional though, and let's be real here, I'd rather have a small, only slightly functional pocket than no pocket at all. But now that I've got those on, it really does look like a bib like this, doesn't it? But now that I've done that, I think I'll jump ahead to seaming the sides, adding the sleeves. I might add some more decorative flair, some embellishment to this. I just don't know what I want at the moment or where I want to put that. And in crocheting the other pieces that I need to, it'll give me a chance to think about that. But yeah, I'm probably not going to go overboard on the decorations this time around, or at least not as far as I was initially planning anyway. Okay, gotta grab my blue yarn out and get to seaming. I finished my side seams yesterday. Maybe this is a better way to show it off. And today I'm going to start on the sleeves. I doubt I'll get them finished, but I'm going to start it. What were the original sleeves like? Because I was tossing up whether I should do double crochet, you know, in the round for the sleeves, or continue on with the granny stitch. But I might consult the original image and see what they had going on, because I cannot remember. I think that's granny stitch. All right, we'll go with granny stitch. Just finished the first sleeve, and I think that's a good length. Like, bear in mind, I still have to add the ribbing, so that's going to give me an additional, I don't know, 5 to 7 centimeters, depending on how wide I make that. I made the bold choice to put this on over my other jumper. So if you compare that to that, like, it's roughly the same length. So where the seam ends there, it's about the same, which is what I was going for. So now I just need to crochet myself the second sleeve. Managed to finish off the 2 sleeves, and now all that remains of the jumper, apart from any decorative pieces I want to add, is the ribbing. So I honestly have no idea when I'm going to get this crocheted. Anyway, I suppose all I can do is just chip away at it when I get some time. Well, I finished the Yarn Law jumper for a given definition of finished. You might have noticed things are a little bit different. My house currently looks like a storage unit due to some things that are going on, so just bear with me. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that in a future video, probably next week's if I can finish it in time. But yeah, just suffice to say my house is a mess at the moment. So here is my Yarn Lord jumper. Unfortunately, I won't be able to model it for you guys this time because I cannot lift my shoulder to actually get into it. I've been like relegated to zip or button up tops for the moment. I know I mentioned a few times throughout this video that this project, it wasn't quite meeting my expectations. I just had to prioritize other things in my life. And while this jumper is technically finished, there's a lot more I could do on it. There's a lot more I want to do on it. I just don't have the time or the energy at the moment. So while for now I'm going to call this a complete project, I do think at some point in the future we're going to come back to this, and I'm just going to add in a few little details, perhaps even change the letters to a smaller version because they are bloody big. They are bloody big. And there's even like a few other sections I'm just not happy with, like my little yarn ball that I made to replace the A. When I first measured that was the same height as the other letters, but over time the chains have curled in on themselves, and I didn't factor that in. And that's another thing, I was like, I should change that, but then I wasn't home for like 2 weeks, and when I got back I didn't have the drive to do so I just left it, and now I'm regretting it. Same with like the letters, they were too big. I should have changed them, couldn't summon up the will to do so, and I've left them. Even the pocket, like the pocket's fine, but like normally I would crochet around the edge. I would give it a nice neat finish, and this time I just forgot to do that. I just straight up forgot. I was like, I've crocheted it, it's done, let's get it on there. And I skipped that step. I think this project could have been a lot better. So yeah, I acknowledge those errors and shortcomings on my part, but at the very least I have the bare bones of a jumper here. Like I just said before, I can definitely come back and fix this. I was going through some of my previously crocheted clothes the other day, and there's a couple there that I might want to make some tweaks to, so perhaps that can be a separate video like in and of itself, just going back and fixing up all my previous mistakes. I'm going to wrap it up there for today because I have to get going in about half an hour. We are going to be taking just a brief hiatus from the hookup, only for maybe like 2-3 weeks maximum. It's just I've got stuff I need to get sorted, and there's a longer story involved there, but I won't get into it. Let me know your thoughts on the Yarn Lord jumper. How would you change or improve this? I do, as I said, I've got my own ideas, but I just wasn't able to implement them this time around. So thank you all very much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you think it's worth sharing, and I will see you hopefully in the next one.